There we go. We're making it work. For the record, there is no record. We're making the record. Wait, so that would mean there's a record, right? Okay, for the record, there is a record, and I guess this is going to be on it. So, anyway, welcome back to the multidimensional trailer park, everybody. Greetings. I think it's working. I hope it's working. If you guys know me, you'll know we always have a couple little bumps and bruises and strange little speed bumps as you enter the parking lot. So, if you can, I'd like you to please put your PIN number of your ATM card in the chat so I know that you can hear me. Please put put your PIN number in the chat. All right, you guys, just so we can, just so we can confirm, everything. Which is a crazy thing to say, right? It's a crazy thing to say, but I am one of those people that I guess we could say over the past month or so after we took a long drive a few months ago. If wow, was it a few months ago? I guess it was last month. We took a long drive out to Illinois, and I'm pretty sure on the way back from Illinois, I went through one of the either a restaurant or one of those gas stations where you scan your card and it has a card skimmer on it. So somebody basically steals your card data. And so yeah, we got caught slipping. And so I ended up having one of those days like, oh yeah, I think it was about a month ago now. I got to have one of those days where I was like, I get some notification on my phone and it's all, you just bought literally the first two were for $1,400 in Taylor Swift tickets. That was the first two, which somehow how card systems or maybe your bank or however you use, and in some cases they'll block it instantly. And so the first two that came through were like, we blocked this transaction, and I looked at it, it was it was Taylor Swift tickets. And then somehow they did it a third time and they squeaked by with this other charge, and it was for like front row seats to some baseball game in Atlanta, and it was 19 it was $1,900. So yeah, I got caught slipping for 1,900 on a card skimmer. I'm pretty sure I felt just kind of in tracking my timeline back, I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in the Atlanta, Georgia area, because I remember we made a lot of stops around that area and got a lot of food and went here and there and this or that. And I'm like, somewhere in there, I know it. I know it. I scanned my card at some place and boom. So anyway, I don't know how we got on that tangent, but I mean, they eventually give you your money back. You know how it is, you guys. You have to file something with your bank or the card company, and they get, eventually a couple weeks later, you get your money back, but you have to go through all kinds of red tape. And anyway, greetings everyone as we start out our live stream today with an unfortunate story from from the mortal realm. For some reason, my StreamYard toolbar thing just dramatically changed. There we go. We're back. Anyway, greetings. Hello once again. And so I want to say also for that was where for the record comment came from. I was going to say for the record, I know I misspelled the name of this live stream today. It was one of those things where after you see it, you're like, oh, let me just change that. And then you can't change it without deleting your live stream and starting all over again. So I made one of those like, big, decisions to be like, you know what? I think we're going to leave it. So I'm officially saying I planned it that way. Although I definitely didn't. I didn't have the heart to, like write a whole other little live stream thing. Not that there's that much effort in it. It's just you have to generate a new link, and then like if people are waiting, then it's like it closes out one live, and then you gotta start another one. And so anyway, so for the record, I know I misspelled the name of my own show, but I guess the good news is that I think I'm pretty sure I'm just feeling the vibe of energy, and I'm pretty sure you guys. It seems like in the realm of the multidimensional trailer park, meaning in the realm where it really is a multi-dimensional trailer park. I think we got upgraded to a semi-abandoned strip mall location. So we're no longer stuck in a multi-dimensional trailer park. Now we're in a semi-abandoned strip mall, which for some people might seem weirder or lamer, but it's kind of an upgrade. I think we're sort of moving up. We're moving on out of the multi-dimensional trailer park. And just so you know, this is and just so you know, this Saturday, which I'm pretty sure this wait, what's the date this Saturday? For the very first time ever on a live stream, I have my phone next to me, which is usually a thing I don't do. So I can tell you exactly what this Saturday is. This Saturday is the 22nd. This Saturday, June 22nd, over in the wild world of Patreon, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doing our monthly reading group, which is almost 4 years, almost 4 years in the running. In September of this year will be our fourth year. So, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, what? Somehow we've been enabled to continue doing this strange thing for 4 years. But yes, please do join us. For anyone that wants to come hang out with us, you guys, it's coming up this Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be gathering over in the Zoom universe to be doing readings for every single person. I say this because it's been a while since we've done any readings on this channel. And let me tell you, I wish I could say I had a good reason. It's just there's a lot of stuff going on right now. For those of you guys that know, we were writing a book for a few months, which I got to be real, that really is a journey in which it was all encompassing. It took me away from everything. And so we had that going on. And then at the same time, we started our 90 in 90 training group, which some of you guys heard me talk about it when we first announced it. It is still going on. We have I think we're down to 7 individuals now. We have 7 individuals that are going through a very particular, very intensive multi-week meeting process that's going on until right about middle of July. And so it's been, honestly, you guys, probably one of the busiest years we've ever had so far, at least. A different type of busyness than I would say 2020 and 2021. 2020 and 2021 will always stand in personal history as the 2 most busiest years of my entire human life. I mean, really, it was just mind blowing the amount of work that I did in 2020 and 2021, which is hard to think. It's hard to think that you could see over 1,000 people in private sessions in 1 year. It's hard to think. It's like I had to put that one together for myself. The numbers are the ones that showed me when, you know what I mean? At the end, when I look at all the Zoom recordings I have, and I'm like, whoa, somehow we saw 1,100 people. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And so, anyway, it's been a wildly busy year. It's good to see you guys in the chat. Thank you for being here. And then the biggest thing, which is honestly the real reason why we're here, you guys know I always drag things out. And so the first announcement is, please join us for our Patreon group meeting. It's coming up this Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Everybody gets a reading, which not that that makes it unique, but I would like to think that we've done a really good job over the past 4 years of differentiating the streams, meaning kind of actually giving relevant little bits of data for each and every person that shows up. You'll notice sometimes when people do kind of mass group readings, a lot of them sort of tend to blend into one, or it's the same primary message repeated over and over again. And then sometimes, which is a thing that I would like to think we've been able to maintain, is that we are able to keep it mostly relevant to the individual. Not to say that every single, mini reading leads to some sort of, groundbreaking personal data. I'm not saying that it's like these like epiphanies about our life. But one thing I think we've been able to do is stay at least somewhat relevant, and or maybe not relevant is the word I'm looking for, applicable to each person. And so, anyway, for those of you guys that don't know, it's only $10, and you can find us over at Patreon at the Blue Flame Collective. I should have the links ready, which I never do. But if you head over to patreon.com and just look for Blue Flame Collective, you're going to find us, and you can join us. The link is up there right now, literally right now. And so join us on Saturday. Everybody gets reading. And then the second thing, the real reason why we're here, which I guess if you guys and for you guys that are here that know me, you already know it's kind of the biggest thing. In fact, it's like I have a lot of issues. You guys know this. I have a lot of issues with selling myself. So it's like even if I do have a big thing to announce, I'll sort of hold it back and like not make a big deal out of it. But this is one that I cannot really not make a big deal about. And that is that a lot of you guys know this, but our book is coming out and it's coming out this Saturday. And so this Saturday, June 22nd, it's going to be released. A number of people have already purchased this in Kindle format. And if you're one of those people, thank you. I mean this sincerely. I did not expect that so many people wanted to order the Kindle version of it. I myself am not a big Kindle reader. I don't, I have a hard time with reading books on my phone or on a device, but I know it's, maybe because I'm a, Generation X person, you know what I mean? Which, for those who don't know, technically means I'm getting old. I still rely on the actual physical thing. And so the physical printed version is going to be available on the 22nd on Amazon. And unfortunately, they don't give you like a they wouldn't give me a pre-sale link for Amazon printed physical book sales. I don't know if that's a thing they don't do or if I personally didn't, knowing us, we probably didn't qualify for such a thing, but it might not even be a thing that they do. But that said, it's going to go live on Saturday the 22nd. And so I it's very rare that I actually ask people for things, but I am asking people. For those of you guys that have enjoyed and watched and taken part, in maybe any of our live streams over the years, those of you that have done sessions with me, those of you that have enjoyed any of the interactions that we've had online or maybe at conferences, maybe we met at a conference or something. Um, I admit you guys can help me greatly. For those of you guys that watch this channel, you can help me greatly by purchasing this book. And I don't say this because of the idea that I would make money off it, because I want to be real with you guys. You make me, I think honestly you get like $4 to $5 out of the cost of those. This it's not a it has nothing to do with money. I mean, literally nothing. But the way it works with the whole Amazon publishing system is that if you can create an impact in the first few weeks of a book launching, meaning if enough people buy it, and I'm going to be real, I don't know what that amount is. Obviously, the more the better. But if it establishes a little bit of a footprint or a little bit of an impact within the first few weeks of its launch, it has a much, much greater and exponentially greater chance of being a recommended title over and over again. Kind of like on YouTube. You guys have seen the YouTube thing, right? Everybody knows how that works. Even if you don't watch them, YouTube is going to continue to suggest the same lame ass videos to you, right? They always do, and you're like, "Why you guys keep sending me that? I don't even watch that." Everyone has it on your YouTube whatever page. I know you guys do. I know you do. You look at them and you're like, "Why are you guys sending me that?" And so it has a big impact because therefore a lot of people are going to end up seeing that. Amazon is very, very similar in that if you can create an impact in the early stage of something, your listing will show up over and over and over again. And so for us, it's really not about has nothing to do with the money side of it. It's that this is an opportunity for those of you guys that enjoy and take part in our channel and the energy that we create. This is an opportunity for you guys to help me reach people that would have never ever seen the work that we do. Which, for those of you guys that even kind of a little bit know me, know that that's been kind of one of our issues. We have had, like it or not, this is the reality of the situation. We have often been very overlooked within our community. We have often been kept at arm's length by many people within our community. We have often been sort of relegated to kind of side status in a number of ways, and that's neither good nor bad. I think that that's more of a testament to the uniqueness of what we do rather than anything else, because we are in a very, very interesting niche. But one thing we do know is that that can be broken very, very easily. And so one of the things we're trying to do with the release of this book is to just reach an entirely new audience. And I think that one of the ways that I've set this up, or one of the things that I've done with the creation of the second half of the book, is to really keep it as simple as possible in terms of what are the things that we can do that are going to continue to keep the non-physical psychic senses growing within the energy body. Because at its heart, when I look at what it is that I've created over the past few months, yes, a really big part of it has to do, you guys, with a bunch of really wild experiences that I had at the start of this journey, which is essentially what this book is. It's in two parts, it's two halves, basically. The first half is really what happened and the wild series of events. And the reality is, if you guys have watched our channel for a while, you've heard bits and pieces of many of these stories. You've heard little fragments of, little elements of it. And then there's some things that I have never, ever, 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 ever spoken about within there as well. And so it's kind of the piecing together of the many elements of my personal timeline. And then in part two is where we begin to talk about, like, what if this is you? What if you have come to an understanding that the bizarreness and the strangeness of your human life is more than just a freak occurrence? What if you've come to the understanding that, there's a series of skills and abilities and a whole other stage of identity and calling underneath that? Then what do you do? Then what do you do? When you finally realize it's real, when we realize this is actually happening, maybe you realize, yes, I am a contactee. Maybe I'm in this, and I'll say it freely. Who knows? Maybe I'm in a program. You know what I mean? Maybe you're saying that to yourself as well. When we finally get to the stage where you realize, like, okay, something is actually happening now. There's something very different about my sensibility or the manner in which I am receiving and processing non physical energy. When you look back on your life and go, oh shit, I've actually really changed. I've changed tremendously over the past few years, and you realize it's happening, then what? And so the idea is that I kept it, or could keep it, hopefully, as simple as possible. And I think I could have made it, like the top 10 things you can do, or, the top 5 things. And what I did is honestly try to keep it as simple as possible from the perspective of what are the base elements that we see those people who continue to do this work and continue to do it effectively, those that it becomes more than just a passing interest in summer of 2024, when you realize you might kind of have a psychic ability, and the stage that you become. What's the difference between those things? You know what I mean? What makes it one or the other? And time again, it's that the people who really enter the stage of your life where you begin to exist or live or serve, we could say serve as that, if you want to call it a mystic, a psychic, a seer, a healer, a practitioner. When you finally get to that stage, you realize that all the people who really do it and make it work, they tend to do certain things over and over and over again. And yes, they will do them in their own ways. All of them. They do them all in their own ways. It's not like there's some standard issue like, okay, so you think this part of your life has begun. Step one, do this. You know what I mean? It's nothing along those lines. So I tried to keep it as basic as possible. And this is information that's freely given. So I'll tell you what it is. A lot of you guys have asked me, and I've told you there's 4 primary gateways. When we start to devoting our life path to opening up intuitive or non-physical abilities, there are 4 primary gateways. The first primary gateway is detox and deprogramming. Detox and deprogramming. And you guys can figure out, you guys have heard me talk about this many times, so a lot of you guys know. I'm not gonna go on a rant on that one. In fact, everyone's an expert in detox now, it depends on whose YouTube channel you follow. So, but that's the first one. Without that, usually there's not, you really can't go too far. You know what I mean? There's a lot of clearing that has to do in the beginning. Step 2, or gateway number 2, is the gateway of divination, which I'm going to be real. A lot of people get caught up in that one. They don't really go very far past it. They sort of enter into the courtyard and they don't really move past it. But what we mean by that is that we begin to learn a method through which we speak and converse with spirit. We've had a number of people within our classes over the past few years that have learned to read tarot, and have learned to read tarot incredibly effectively, like shockingly well, shockingly well. And that is the second gateway. It's like, first we clear everything up. Next, we start to move into the area where we learn how to communicate with the system. And then we go to step 3, which is the energy anatomy portion, which we talk about this. There's a lot. A big chunk of this book is devoted to that section because I think that the third gateway, you guys, is probably the one when people really truly step into this pathway in your life and you're like, okay, I realize this is a thing I'm becoming. It's past the point of being an interest. It's past the point of just being this, fun thing that I talk about on the weekends. I realize I'm changing and I'm now taking steps in my life to further that growth. When we get to gateway 3, I think that is the one that changes everything for people. It doesn't necessarily sustain it, but that's the one that changes everything because that's the first time where you learn how the inside of the so-called machine works. That's where we start to learn about like the inner workings and like the pathways. And, if you've hung out on this channel long enough, I won't go very long without mentioning chakras or meridians. But that's where I think, the majority of the changes really take place is in gateway number 3. And I'll be real, most people never even go there. Look at all your friends and family and people that you've known within your spiritual kind of ascension, disclosure, starseed community. Look at the people who have really advanced themselves within their paths of learning and intuitive development. And notice that the ones that they have taken up each of these gateways in their own way, in their own manner. It's not that everyone refers to them as such, but you'll notice that these become hallmark elements of a person's, we could say, behavior. And so anyway, step number 4 or gateway number 4 is energy body cultivation, which if you want to get technical, it should probably be number 1, but for some reason it's number 4. So but energy body cultivation, that's the make it or break it stage where, it's like now that you know you're psychic, now that you detox a little bit of your energy, now that you have a language with which to speak with spirit, now that you have an inner working of this strange spectral machine and the many circuits and pathways inside the human body, now that you know all that, how do you keep it running? How do you keep it going? That's where energy body cultivation keeps this thing flowing over and over and over again. And I know this is one thing I know people that have watched this channel for a while. I know that you have seen this. If you've been to any of the conferences, if you've just had a close eye on any of your favorite kind of star seed disclosure ascension influencer celebrity people, what you will notice over the years, and this is invariable, okay? There's very few absolutes, but what you'll notice over the years is the ones who do not cultivate their energy, because you'll notice they tend to get autoimmune issues. They tend to, at times, start looking very unhealthy. They start to just get weird illnesses. Sometimes when you finally see them in public, you realize, and I say this will come out kind of humorously, but I'm being really, really real. Sometimes you'll end up seeing those people over time and you'll notice the way their energy and their bodies and their spirit seems to mutate. It seems to change. It seems to kind of become somewhat malformed underneath the buildup and the toxicity of non-physical energy that exists within the body. You'll see that over time. I noticed it, over the years of going to like Conscious Life Expo and a number of other, conferences where you'll just see the way non-physical energy changes people. And then likewise on the other side of it, you'll see people that somehow just get stronger and they get more clear. And you sort of watch them go through their path over time, over a course of a few years doing the work that they do, and you realize that it's like some force of vitality or some energy is maintained within their body in a different way. In fact, it's almost like they end up changing and evolving in their own way, and maybe they end up, leaving behind those elements of who and what they were when you first encountered them in the first place. So it's like they continue a path of evolution, and other people tend to gather and sort of absorb and remain in this state of, activation, but, somewhat pollution. And I think you guys are going to see that the longer you stick around in the so-called, psychic ascension, disclosure spiritualist kind of soul groups, you're going to watch the way those that do the type of work that we do, those of us that follow this channel, you go through a lot of weird changes in it. It changes you, it changes your body, it changes your consciousness, it changes the way you interact with the world. It changes, what you believe to be important. It changes what you know as truth. And one of the things that I've noticed in doing this work full time for, it's crazy because it's like approaching 8 years somehow. I don't know how, but what I have noticed is that yes, it'll definitely take a toll on you. And the ones that keep going are the ones that stay in that fourth gateway of energy body activation. They continue to cultivate life force essence in the body. And anyway, I see you guys in the chat. You Somebody out there knows what I'm gonna say. I would imagine Aurora Diamond Heart knows what I'm gonna say. Because that's why we do Qigong, for real. That's why you do qigong, you guys. It'll keep you going when all else fails. And I remember that specifically, which we talk about that in the book, in that portion where I think it was in the third or the fourth gateway. That was the thing that I noticed when I would go to these conferences in the very early days of when I first started doing this work on a professional level. Before I was doing any sort of speaking, and the reality is I'm very rarely speaking anywhere anyway, but before I was even known on any level, and I was just doing the thing that I do in that little shop that I was doing it in the greater Los Angeles area. I used to go to those conferences and I would just sit there, and you just kind of sit there and just look at everyone and just kind of watch all the energies that go by and notice all the weird and intricacies and the bizarreness of everyone. And it's like that was one thing that I noticed over a period of like 2 to 3 years of watching that, how it was like some of the really big names, some of the really big people, it's like I look at their energy field and it's like something was mutated or changed or had metastasized or had gathered, it had become toxic in some way. It was almost like people would have this tendency to sort of disconnect the lower chakras and separate themselves from the physical world on some level. And it just leads to strange forms of atrophy over the human body, which is anyway, it's a very a very strange thing to behold. But it's just one of a number of things that we talk about within this weird book. And so anyway, to get back to the whole spirit of the whole thing, I am calling upon those of you, friends and family, those of you that follow this channel, those of you that hear my voice, whether now or in the future, those of you that have benefited from the work that we do, have received healing or knowledge, or maybe you just hung out and had a good time. If you ever wanted to be of service to me, you could help us by purchasing this book that's coming out on the 22nd, helping us maybe, get bumped up a little bit in the listings on Amazon. And I'm going to be real. One of the big goals behind this, and I say this freely, even though it's kind of cringe, I'm also trying to get on Coast to Coast AM. And one of the things was that I had to have a book, and so I finally have a book, so maybe they'll let me on. So you guys can kind of put that as your intention out there. It's sort of like a circular kind of timeline thing for me, because a lot of you guys have heard me talk about this. And what's up, Rob? I see you hanging out there. You jogged my memory on the Art Bell Coast to Coast AM like connection, because before I even knew that this was ever what I was going to do in this life, I remember hanging out as a kid, listening to Art Bell and eventually George Norrie deep in the night, or honestly, later on it became early in the morning. Like I would get up early and start listening to like the recordings of it, or I would listen to it at night. But before any of this started in my life, I remember listening to that show, and I remember people coming in there and talking about demons and like, exorcisms and, aliens and all this wild stuff. And for some reason, I remember as a kid, these moments, these nights where it was like, I had no reason to think such a thing. But as a child, I remember moments where I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be working with that someday. I'm gonna be handling that. So I better learn all I can right now." Like, you know how you'll do that as a kid? You'll be like, "Someday I'm gonna this, so I better get it all now." That sort of childlike thinking where you think you're gonna absorb some type of experience by learning, something from that. That's really how it was for me at a couple stages. And so there were, kind of some signs early on. I like to say that shows like that gave me little pieces of who and what I am here now today, because through the guests, through the information that I picked up over the years, on that show, it kind of gave me pieces of myself back in a really strange way. So it's just kind of one of my It's one of my personal goals. We're trying to get on Coast to Coast AM, which is easy for some people, you know what I mean? But anyway, I think I signed up for the not easy version of most things in this life. And so anyway, thanks you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any questions. I feel bad. We haven't really been acknowledging the chat this whole time. What's going on, you guys? Let me know if you guys have any questions about the current energetic climate. I've noticed a lot of people going through big waves of emotional turbulence over the past few weeks. And you know, who knows? Maybe that's an astrological thing. Maybe it's a solar flare thing. I'm not sure what it is, but in doing the work that I do, you will notice certain themes. You'll sort of notice like people coming in groups, and they'll be dealing with certain things or certain emotions, and it seems like a lot of people right now are kind of popping a bubble of old emotion within the body, almost like we're making room for something. And just in hearing me say that, it sounds like, yeah, we're making room for blessings and, you know, some kind of airy fairy, you know, love and light bullshit type of thing. But I don't mean it from that perspective. I mean it like people are popping and releasing big, guttural, deep, toxic amounts of emotion from the body. I'm not talking like the, oh, I had a good cry and now I feel ready for ascension type of release. I'm talking about the like, you know, where you just feel so much buildup passing from the body. And what I've noticed over the years is when I see that trend where people come in and it's like they have to have a big purge, and I've had a lot of them. So I honestly, it's one of the best things you can do when you're receiving a energetic healing process. But usually when we have people that go through these big purges, like this big emotional purge, it's usually because it's like it's making room for another thing in your life. It's making room for another path of growth. And I choose to say path of growth because I think sometimes on a collective level, it's about companionship. Sometimes on a collective level, it's about abundance. Sometimes it's about, you know, overcoming certain things. Sometimes I think it's about an individualistic path of growth. I know for me, the big path of growth that I've had to deal with over the past few months came in the form of writing a book, which I never thought I would do. I'll be real. I literally never thought I was going to finish it. And so, you know, maybe that was me having to purge. Well, I did, because I had to purge through tremendous amount of emotions in that process and making room for what was going to happen. And it's not that there's any finality to it, because trust me, as soon as you know, you go through one layer of the onion, this whole other one opens up, and then you're back in some weird, crazy, deep healing process with another area of your life. So there's no finality to it, but it seems like we're going through a really big purge. And what's up, Rob? He says full, oh, there we go. It's a full, Rob says full moon's happening right now too. You know, I believe that it is. I will also say, I say this publicly, I think that oftentimes there's going to be a lot of astrological things going on, you guys, and I am one of those people within the community that might not know. And it's for some, you'd be like, what, why would you say that? Well, I honestly, I've said this a million times. I'm the least astrological psychic anyone here knows. You guys know me. I've never asked a person their birth date. I don't know how to look at such things. I've never invested time in looking at the movements of the planets, which I honestly think is an amazing thing given how well we do with other forms of energy. It's almost like we never needed it. But I do freely admit, I think a lot of times there could be certain changes or currents of energy that are flowing on a planetary level that will you know, I'm willing to say it, they might go right over my head. You know, I might be observing the process of what I'm seeing within my sessions and the movement of energy within the non-physical body through my perspective, which for me, my perspective is, you know, within the chakras, within the meridians, with what I call the timeline energy that we're interacting with. Um, More so than, you know, the currents of what's going on in the planets. But somehow, this is the crazy thing. Somehow we still tend to get nearly identical or very close layers of actionable intel regardless. So it's kind of shown me over the years that we like we're doing something right. We're doing something right. But I think at the same time, and this is, I think, a smart thing for everyone that does this type of work to look at. I think it's really important to understand where your strengths are in terms of the work that you do, and it's really important to understand where your weaknesses are. I think anyone who's not willing to say, I know enough about that to know I know nearly nothing, and that stuff over there I know literally nothing about. You know what I mean? To me, that's a smart thing to do. I think it keeps the door open for you to continue to learn, and I think it also helps us remain strong and what we're good at. And anyway, I try not to be unteachable in the work that I do. And anyway, it's good to see you guys. Thanks for hanging out here. I forgot I can click on your comments. What's up, Dawn Vibrations? It's definitely squirrel energy. If by squirrel energy you mean all over the place and back and forth and kind of running up and down the walls maybe a little bit, then I definitely feel you. I definitely feel you on that. Aurora Diamond Heart says, I imagine writing a book like that takes you through a whole range of emotions. Dude, it really, really does. And I know you guys have heard me talk about this a bit. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you haven't heard this. 'Cause I haven't done a lot of lives over the past few months. So maybe it's a thing that I keep saying to people, but not saying publicly. So forgive me if it's is like the oldest piece of news you've already heard out of my mouth. But it is horrible. Honestly, like I cannot romanticize it. I cannot sit here and tell you, yes, you should go write a book. It's going to take you through all of your greatest memories and all of the magic of the early days of your life and help you remember all the beautiful things. I mean, yeah, you're gonna remember a lot of those things. But honestly, it was one of the most deepest guttural purges of just unhealed and just past energy that I have ever gone through in the entire almost 47 years of my life on earth. And I know that sounds very like theatrical, right? It sounds like, oh yeah, really big deal, but it was, dude. Literally every day. It's like I could literally smell the past energy coming out of my body. And I know for some people out there, you're like, "What? That's dumb. Whatever, man. What? Come on, bro. For real, for real." It's like I could taste it. I could smell it, the past coming out of my body. It's a wild thing. And I guess, after going through it all, what did we learn? We learned that I have to do probably at least 2 to 3 more books very similar to this, which is maybe not such a good idea, but it's definitely happening. And so the next one, everyone, the next one's a tarot book, which is good because a very large portion of it it's already written. It's already written. It's literally out there. And so we just have to piece it all together in a little bit of a different manner. And it is a very different assignment, very, very different assignment than the first book. It's so who knows? Maybe that'll come out in less than 7 more years. Maybe. Actually, honestly, I think it's probably going to come out about a year from now. I would like to say my desire would be to publish it about a year after the first one. So who knows? But here's the thing, you guys. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. We could have the fall of the American Empire in that time. You never know. What's up, Andromedan? Vampire dude. Probably. That's a bit, honestly, that is there is the true story of my encounter with a real life psychic vampire. The uncensored version of that is definitely in this book. Because I have had a real life encounter with a real life version of of a vampiric entity, unlike any that I think I honestly haven't even heard of anyone that's met someone like this, even within the stories that we heard. Even the stories that we tell is a very, very, very much Hollywood sort of scenario, but that's definitely in there. The true story of the psychic vampire encounter is definitely in there. Um, so yeah, check it out. It's coming out on the 22nd, you guys. It's coming out on the 22nd. I also need some collective good energy or some collective intentions, you guys, that we can get added to a couple of different podcasts or other people's shows. You guys know this. For those of you guys that watch our channel a lot, we always have a hard time. I always have a hard time getting on other people's channels, but the reality is, I mean, love it or hate it, I have to talk about this book. And so send out some good intentions to the world that we're going to get an opportunity to just show up on other people's shows. One thing I can tell you is that we're going to be over on the Typical Skeptic podcast on Saturday evening as well. And so we're going to be talking about it with Rob on Saturday. I'm going to be doing some readings on his show as well, which is wild, you guys. Saturday's a heavy Saturday's a wild day. We're doing a Patreon meeting at 4. We're doing a show at, I think, at 8 o'clock. And so, but yeah, I'm looking for opportunities. So if you're one of the people out there who happens to stumble upon this recording right now, and if you have a podcast, if you have a show, if you have a channel, if you're the type of person that has been looking for ways in which you can continue to awaken your own psychic and intuitive abilities, if you're looking for what I would call a very a somewhat well established method now, one that we know that works, of dilating energy centers on such a level that allows you to begin perceiving energy very differently. If you're a person that's interested in such things, I would love to come on your channel and talk about it. And then, also we have a number of wild experiences with a host of strange beings. And so, anyway, you never know who will find you out there. So I always try to say such things, but um, you never know. You never know. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Today's been kind of an epic rant. I've also decided we're going to start treating the lives that we do on this channel in Ivan Teller style, which means that randomly at some point while we're talking, I'm just going to turn I'm just going to end it. I'm just like all of a sudden, okay, blessings, boom, and I'm just going to close it at some point. Just because I noticed that's what Ivan does. And for those of you guys that don't know, Ivan Teller is back on YouTube. And so anyway, thanks, you guys. I'm going to scan through and see if there's any questions or comments. Thank you, Feng Shui Susan. I appreciate it. Thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. Seem to be reliving the grieving of so many loved ones. I hear you, and I apologize for that. Like I said, it has been a time of big emotional purging for some of us. Some of us, it's been around, maybe losses or, the mourning of those who have left. In other cases, it might have been, relationships that people have transitioned out of. Some people have had big health things. They've had like big health, upheavals over the past few months, and then in other cases, people are checking out, and so. Um, Thank you for being one of the ones that chose to remain here. Thank you for being one of the ones that chose to remain here and carry the torch, to remain on the earth plane. I mean that sincerely, by the way. I really, really mean that. Thank you for remaining here on the earth plane. I pray that their momentum, care, and love is behind you in some way. What's up, Dennis Lindsay? The energy is giving me vertigo. You know what? It could. It definitely could. Wonder what's going on with your inner ear. I'm trying to remember the name of that system, the vestibular system. What's going on with your vestibular system, Dennis? Hopefully you're still here. Um, one thing you could do, technically you could do this if you do get vertigo. Let's say if you do get some dizzy spells, let's say if you're one of those people that just it kind of comes and goes, or I don't know, maybe it happens a lot. One of the things you can do, you guys, there's a point on the face, on the jaw and around your ears, where if you begin massaging and pulling your ears, and hopefully you guys can see this on camera, you can see what I'm doing. I'm kind of pulling my ear on the bottom away from my head and sort of tugging it. In fact, you could do this with both of your ears. Let's say you're having a hard time with jaw pain. Let's say you're having a hard time with headaches at the base of your skull and the back of your head. Let's say you're having a hard time, maybe some vertigo. Maybe you could even say maybe you're having a little bit of a toothache. In fact, if you want to go even farther, someone knew I was going to go on an anatomical rant here today. If you want to go even farther, and let's say you had a little bit of deficiency in your kidney energy, you can literally begin massaging your ears, which is one of the points on your body that's connected to pretty much every organ, and um, start pulling your ears. And so the reason why we do this when people have vertigo, or when they have some sort of a disruption of the inner ears, that it helps us disperse and move energy that will kind of coagulate and build up inside there. And one of the things that'll happen is when it can't flow and it can't move and it can't sort of, retain the type of motion that it needs to keep your balance in order, it's like everything gets clogged up and we start getting weird and sick, and you get vertigo. And so you'll sort of stretch. You guys can do this at home if you've just been kind of feeling tension and headaches in your body. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like pulling my ears, almost like you were outside and it was really cold and you were like pulling your ears and massaging them. And then you can go to step 2, which is going to be right here underneath your ears. And we can do it on both sides of your neck. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm taking 2 fingertips and I'm pressing it in underneath my ears and just kind of do circles. Put a little bit of pressure there. And just like you did at the bottoms of your ears, it's like you're going to pull it down. Technically, that'll help your vagus nerve too. A lot of people out there know that's also a big vagus nerve point. Anyway, Dennis, that's for you. My prayer is that's going to help with your vertigo. And anyone else that's getting weird headaches, inner ear problems, balance issues, pain in the back of your head, jaw tightness. What was the other? There was other stuff. There's other stuff. The list goes on. The ears are a crazy one, you guys. Totally. We got a lot of Ivan fans in here. That's a very, very good sign, right? We got good job, you guys. We got a lot of Ivan fans. Totally. I don't think he'll ever see this, but maybe he'll feel the appreciation. But yeah, no, we are. We're gonna start ending our live streams so randomly. It's just gonna all of a sudden I'm gonna say blessings and then I'm just gonna cut it. That's how we're going to do it. We're in a whole new era. That's what happens when you switch from the multi-dimensional trailer park to the multi-dimensional rundown strip mall. It used to be like one of those clothing stores, like a clothing outlet store. I'm trying to think of a name of one of them. Anyway, I can't think of any names to drop, but now it's just like this open strip mall where there's nothing there. And so we're taking it over, which I guess is good because it means there's a lot more parking for people that would have previously been to the multi-dimensional trailer park. Now we have a much larger parking area, which is good. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, you guys. Let me know if you have any questions on energetic matters, on energy centers, meridians, areas of the body. What's up, Victoria Ileana? She says, yes, massive headaches and heartache. I even went to the doc because I was having strokes, or I thought I was having strokes, but he said no. I was okay. I'm really sorry that is going on. I mean that very, very sincerely, especially when emotions end up taking this very distinct physiological toll on the body. You might already know about this, and so maybe I'm just going to pass on some like useless data that you're already very, very well versed in. But technically, you are describing in textbook fashion pericardium energy, especially how you mentioned heartache, especially how you mentioned strokes. Maybe you were having, like you said, massive headaches. Maybe you were having even pain and tightness in your chest or in the back of your neck or things like that. And like I was saying, that's a really good example of when an emotion will sort of build up and become this really wild physiological blockage in the body. And so let's just say, theoretically, if you wanted to help soften or clear your pericardium, and for the record, why would you want to soften and clear your pericardium? For those of you guys that don't know, first off, it's the layer that surrounds your heart. It's the sort of like the sac or the layer, the membrane that surrounds the heart. When your heart beats, it's the pericardium actually doing it. But the pericardium channel is the channel of intimacy, the channel of love, the channel of self-love, the channel of body image, the channel of close companionship, of how you connect with people, of we could even say the emotions that you pick up when you hear a person's voice. You know how you'll hear someone's voice and you'll begin to discern emotions through the quality of their tone of voice. All those things are in part affected or in some way controlled by the pericardium channel. And so technically you're describing like major pericardium energy. Um, and so I guess here's a really fun way to break it up. And why do I say break it up? Because it's a thing that you would kind of break up, because it'll sort of coagulate and sort of tighten up around the chest. And so a lot of you guys will already know this if you're familiar with EFT tapping, but there is a very specific way to open up the pericardium. And so what you do is you start right at the top of your collarbone, like right at the tip. In fact, if anyone wants to do it with me, maybe Victoria Ileana will do it. But just find the very tip of your collarbone, okay, you guys, right at the top. And then you're just going to very gently, you're just going to start tapping, okay? Which is the EFT element, which is ultimately what you're doing with EFT is you're breaking up layers of non-physical energy and emotion that are in the body. But here's what you're doing. You're going to tap and you're going to go downward in a line along your sternum. Like you're going to almost like you're thumping your chest, and not to make it cheesy and lame, but it is. It's like you're sort of tapping your chest all the way down to the tip of your sternum, down at the very, very, top of your belly. And here's the thing that takes it from being just a tapping thing and breaking up energy within the body to actually becoming a scalar tone and having a different layer of impact. As you're doing this, you're going to create a tone and a sound with your body. And it sounds really silly, you guys. It sounds really like, oh, okay. But seriously, if you do this, it will help break up and release energy from the pericardium. So I'm going to show you how it goes. StreamYard might cut my audio, so you might not hear anything, but what you're going to do is you're going to tap on the top of your chest. You'll take a breath in. And as you're tapping, you will go, so as you're releasing that sound, you're kind of tapping, kind of like that silly, like motorboat sound kids do. You know what I mean? It's like you're creating a wavy, vibratory sound on your chest as you're breaking up energy. And so what happens is that pulls energy away from the pericardium. And so for some of you guys out there, I mean, this can be the difference between you continuing to attract the same type of people in your life over and over and over again, the same relationships, you being attracted to the same type of, we could say, narcissistic energies, or having the same type of people attracted to you. It can be the difference in that keeping going and you coming into a new stage of, relationship, or just, we could say, healing of the heart. It's not to say that it's all about relationships and romance and intimacy. It also has a big impact on how we relate with people, on how when you connect with people, some people you're able to connect with them, in the eyes, and there's this immediate sort of like moment of like, yes, I can be present in your energy. A lot of that sort of control, not all controlled, but it's greatly affected by the pericardium. And so anyway, we're gonna do it one more time. For those of you guys out there that are not afraid, you're gonna go to the top of your collarbone. We're gonna breathe in together, and as we breathe out, we're gonna and sort of tap on your chest and make that sound, like that vibration sound. Okay, from the top all the way to the base of your chest bone. Okay, guys, here we go. Breathing in and tap. Go all the way down to the bottom of your chest, and then just afterward, take your hands and pull energy off the top of your chest. Imagine you're doing it sort of like you're pulling plastic wrap off of a package, and you'll reach in there and you'll just rip it off. Pull it away from the top of your chest. Cast it aside. Good job, everybody. Good job. If you want to go to, I don't know, we'll call it step 4. If you really want to help open your pericardium, you can also work with the palm of your hand. A lot of you guys have done this with me before, so it's old news. But if you're wondering where that portal is, take the palm of your hand and very gently make a fist. Notice where your middle finger touches, that little spot right there. And that's pericardium, I think 8, right? Pericardium 8, which is where just a vast amount of energy can be released from the body. And so if you want to, when you're done, take your middle finger and just do a couple little circles right there. Just do a few circles. As you breathe in, imagine you're breathing in through this little opening in your palm as you're making a circle, and then breathe out through it as you breathe out. And then switch hands. Remember, you're using your middle finger on the palm of your hand. Find that little point. So you're going to close your palm. Notice where your finger touches. And just breathe in and out through it. Good job. And when you're done, cast it aside. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for that wild. What was that? What's the word I'm looking for? Excursion, is that the right word? We just took an excursion into our energetic anatomy. Thank you. I don't think that's the right word. That's not the right. I was thinking of diversion, but I don't think that's the right word either. Anyway, Andromedan had a question. Do we have techniques for to open up the mind's eye, the third eye? We definitely do. Okay, so here's the fun thing about the third eye, Andromedan and everyone else. You will know this now forevermore, or until someone with a higher follower count on YouTube tells you the same thing within the next few months or years. Then you can pretend like you heard it there first. But your third eye is more than just one focusing lens. It's actually about, I would say, 5 to 6 different visual sensing lenses all in one, very much like petals of a flower. And within the petals of that flower, there are several different lenses, like I said, that correspond with elemental energies. And so we know what those are: earth, air, fire, water, ether. There may be others that I'm not aware of, that I do not know how to perceive. But I would say the first thing to take with you is that the third eye is also much more than a visual lens as well. And for a lot of people, we go through a number of different stages of activating the third eye. And by activating the third eye, most people understand that to mean opening up what we call the visual cortex, or the inner visual senses. And so as we go through stages of third eye activation, usually those energies activate in other parts of your body first, and they can activate, for a lot of people, it starts to activate along with your intestines, which is usually one of the first stages of your psychic activation, and that's where you begin to develop claircognizance. That has a very special relationship with your third eye, primarily because of the proximity to the navel chakra, which is sort of the back door to your third eye. Each of your primary chakras has a venting point the energy needs to be released from in order for it to begin to be used in just a more optimal way. And so when we start to open the third eye, we usually begin in the gut. We begin in the intestines. We begin at the navel chakra. And I guess if you're looking for a technique, before I go on a long rant about the mechanics of it, there's a phrase you can use that we use in every single session. It's also in the book. We tell you how to use them in the book. But the phrase is, and these are freely given to everyone, it is "a va me." I'm going to put it in the chat. Oops. I have one of those wireless keyboards now. Sorry, guys. So you have to like wait a second for it to start. Like you'll start typing and then it words don't show up for a second. It's actually really annoying. It's super annoying. Is this the annoyance of modern convenience? Boom. This is the phrase for the third eye. And so Andromeda, I think it was Andromeda that asked as well. And anyone else, for those of you guys that are going through your own healing processes in order to begin opening up your own channels and chakras and meridians, Ava Me is one that responds very well to repeated chanting, very much like you do with other things. And you can literally do meditations where you will sit there, you'll focus upon the third eye, you'll bring breath and energy into it, and you can literally just sit there and do Ava Me, Ava Me. And you're just sending energy right into the third eye. If you wanted to go even farther, you could practice inhaling through the third eye as you're breathing in. And as you're toning or you're using Ava Me, you will begin to imagine as though you're actually emitting that vocal vibration through the third eye itself. One of the things we know about the, the chakras, or in this case, if you want to even, go deeper into, like the pineal, um, it responds very much like a filter, meaning there's this sort of movement or this natural flow of energy that moves back and forth and in and out of these energy centers or these passageways in the body. And one of the things we know that, I mean, we just know it. We've seen it time and time again. It's past the point of being, some sort of an assumption. It's past the point of being this sort of fanciful idea. One thing we know is that the capsule phrases, specifically Ava Me and the other ones that we use, those cause your chakras to dilate. So as you're beginning to bring more light and energy into the third eye and you chant Ava Me, it's causing it to open up little by little by little. And so, anyway, that's probably a crazy over answer. I over answer everything these days, Andromeda, and you're gonna be like, "Yeah, thanks, bro." You know? Anyway, I grossly over answered your question, but I encourage everybody to use Ava Me. Not too long ago, there was somebody on YouTube that actually made a video about it. The only way I know is because I was searching for capsule phrases on YouTube to see if anyone else. I'm like, maybe other people are doing it. Maybe other people are doing this thing. And I think this was in 2021. And I was just looking at, I searched for it on YouTube, and it was actually a guy doing a talk using Ava Me, saying, "Hey, here's this phrase that I learned from this guy's channel to help open your third eye. It actually works." And man, I wish I knew where that was now. I wish I could find it. I don't even know if he has a channel now. And so it's just weird that when I went looking for it on YouTube, I actually found an example of the version that we used. So something happens. Something happens. Mr. Scoggins, good to see you. I've been visualizing the third eye chakra stimulation from not only the front, but also the back of the head and perhaps the sides as well. I believe that is a very, very wise thing to do. Um, to Sorry, but we've opened the door for extreme anatomical ranting now, and so I will tell you later on as you go through the journey, you guys, people are going to start talking about the causal chakras. Like I said, don't worry. You can wait until someone with a million followers starts talking about them, and then it'll be like you heard of it for the first time. But in the meantime, I'll tell you now. When you're pushing your breath and your energy and your focus horizontally, like let's say you're bringing it through the third eye, and you're breathing energy and you're extending it outward through the front, and then you start doing the side ones. That is one of the processes or the methods through which you begin to awaken the causal chakras. And the thing about causal chakras is that it's a kind of a I don't understand why they're called causal chakras. I think it might have something to do with what people call the causal plane. Although I want to be upfront with you, I don't really understand the causal plane. I might know it through different terms or through, different means. But one thing I do know about what are referred to as the causal chakras is that they emit from the sides of the head in a horizontal arc, similar to what happens with the third eye or the pineal gland. As it begins to activate, it begins to send rays of light outward. Pineal also sends them out to the sides as well. But there's specific chakras that begin to emit from the sides of the head. And so as we go into the stages of what some people would call, for lack of a better word, fifth density or 5D consciousness, which I know probably just lost a lot of people, or maybe grabbed a lot of people, depending on, your love or, idea of that term. As we move into that fifth density consciousness, we begin to have the ability to affect physical matter from non-physical methods. And we have an ability to sort of transmit and use energies throughout space and time in a non-linear fashion, meaning we're stepping outside of time in a number of ways. And so it has been observed that the causal chakras, as they begin to emit from the sides of the head, are part of the infrastructure within your chakra body, within the non physical anatomy, that begins to enable the beginnings of that process. As you begin to learn to step outside of what we would call the bounds of time and space and to affect physical matter through non physical means, the causal chakras are some of the things that help you do that. And from what I can tell, and I know now, I am definitely not the only one that has come to this conclusion. But one of the things we have observed is that as you send that energy to the sides, well, first off, you might not notice much. I'm going to be real. You might not really, it might not lead to like this really big effect where you're like, oh my God, my third eye is way more open. You know what I mean? I'm getting so much more energy. It might not. It might not. And I believe part of that Part of that is because for most of us, the collective infrastructure needed to make use of these new chakra elements as they activate out of the body, it's not really fully in place yet. You'll find some people that are hyper activated that will have those chakras in full motion. And after a time, what they do is they sort of orbit the sides of the head, kind of like a planet, but it's not always that they're interacting with a bunch of other things because it's almost like, back in the old days when they were building, the telegraph system, and they would put wires in, but there's no signal there, meaning that the other places, the cities and whatnot, weren't connected. And so for a lot of people, it's like as the causal chakras activate, we might not get that much of an effect or really any effect. The effect comes later. As we begin to tune in on a collective level to energies on a greater in a greater way, as you begin to connect with other people who are going through similar types of activations. In fact, you'll find just spending time around people that have had those elements of their energetic anatomy activated has this sort of effect where it'll activate other people. It'll just sort of like affect them in their own way. And so, anyway, sorry to go on a rant about that part of it, Donald Scoggins, but I think it's really cool that you're doing that because to me, that says that you are following the natural flow of where your body's trying to go. Because I think for most of us, as we continue this, what we might call awakening process of, opening up pathways and coming to new understandings of self, you're going to notice that during that journey, you're just going to have these urges to like, I feel like I should send my energy this way, or I'm going to go that way, or for some reason I feel guided to do it like this. And I guess it's cool to know there's an actual reason. There's an actual reason behind it. And so, anyway, not to go on and on, but you're laying the infrastructure for activations that will come in the future. And so, I hope that makes sense. Thanks, Donald. It's good to see you. Thanks, Feng Shui Susan. Use Avame. I pray that you will. I pray that you will. What's up, Lewis? Years ago, I heard the chakras are pre installed with half of them activated, and we activate the other half. And when we do, they begin to rotate. Do you have an experience that would relate to that? I believe that's true in terms of the rotation. That was one of the first things I noticed. I would say I guess this is ancient history now. In 2015, when all this wild stuff started, some of you guys have heard me talk about it. I guess it's in the book as well. You guys are gonna have to hear that so many times now. It's in the book. Yeah, oh, you'll be tired of that phrase soon. But it is a thing that's mentioned in there. In the early days of activation for me, I actually could hear the chakras first. That was the first thing I noticed about them, is that they actually had a voice or like a chime sound or like this auditory wavelength. Later on, what I noticed was that when I would sort of kind of focus on them in a visual way, was that they were very much to me like almost flower like appendages or plumes of smoke, or these sort of funnel like passageways that would extend both out of the front and the back of most people and also to the sides in their own way. I do believe that there's a rotational aspect of them. I can't say that I necessarily put a whole bunch of emphasis on the rotational aspect. What I've noticed is that if you dilate chakras properly, it's very much like when you go to a chiropractor and they sort of pop or move one area and then everything goes and it all kind of snaps into line naturally. I've noticed that that's an effect that takes place, but that might be more the manner in which I work, because you're going to hear a lot of other people that do chakra work, and they're always talking about aligning your chakras, and that's a really big part of it. They definitely will come out of alignment. I guess the manner in which I realign chakras is not one that I would call deliberate. It's not one where I'm like, I got to go in there and realign somebody's chakras. It's more like when we open up our energy centers in this way, it kind of like, whoop, whoop, everything kind of moves back into its own position. Which I gotta be real, over the years, as I look at that process, I think that for people that look at it with a critical eye, you would notice that there's some distinct advantages in allowing them to sort of move back into position on their own. And I think there might also be some, maybe even some disadvantages or lack at times, maybe lack of specificity in terms of what's going on within certain chakras specifically. You know what I mean? I might not always get as specific within what we would call the psychosocial data that's within the energy body, or maybe I do, and I don't perceive that I do, but I don't really take great care to realign things. We just kind of dilate and open. And anyway, I'm kind of looping on your question, but that's a very smart question. I hope my answer makes sense and didn't just restate the question. Or you know how sometimes you'll try to answer a question and you'll sort of like talk around it in a way that you don't even realize you're doing? Or at least I guess I have observed myself doing such things. What's up, Cruz Perez? You think if we lived on a space station and didn't need to sleep, we would finally perceive time as nonlinear? That's an interesting idea and observation. If we didn't need to sleep, would we then perceive time as nonlinear, meaning we would be awake and aware maybe for every element of the passage of time? Would that cause us to change our viewpoint upon it? That's a very, very good question. Um, the way that it kind of strikes me upon reading it is that for some reason, I think that if we didn't sleep, it might not necessarily give us a truer perspective on the way time works. I think that it would probably give us this will come out oddly. It'll probably give us a hell of a lot more time to study and to come to new understandings on that, because we won't be taking part in sort of, the biological rhythms of the human body. So maybe, along with that, we would generate a new perspective. But for some reason, I don't know. I guess the sort of soft conclusion I'm coming up with upon reading your question is that I kind of don't think it would cause us to perceive that time is not linear. I think for a lot of people, maybe, well, how about this? I will speak for myself. I think the way that the thing that really hammered that home for me in a way that I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that time was not linear for me, I think came through what were essentially involuntary out of body experiences that I had at the beginning of this journey in 2015, which, let me be real, that's kind of a cheap answer, right? Kind of a cheap answer, like, oh well, all you got to do is just check out of your human body, clearly. Don't you know? Just pull out of your body and then you can perceive time. It's not like I can just do that right now and just pop out of my body and perceive nonlinear time, although it is still a thing that happens with pretty good regularity for me. I do know that it's something that everyone can do, and for some people, they spend years and years of their life trying to reach outside the body. I think for me, it was just it was immediate. It's like as soon as you finally get outside of what we would call the third dimensional framework of reality, you realize that, I mean, kind of like you're saying right there, number one, time is nonlinear, and number two, it's almost like it's alive in its own way. Like it's literally like some kind of a living sentient frequency. Not to say it's like a being, not to say you're going to talk to it, but it's like time has its own form of consciousness, which is I think a nearly impossible thing to try to understand from an intellectual perspective at a third density body. I realized that even me saying it, over the course of a YouTube live stream, it just really opens the door for further ridicule and more misunderstanding because I think most of us, myself included, really can't fully grasp what that actually means. But once you leave the physical human body, you can live, and I have had this experience directly. You can live an entire lifetime that will take place in mere seconds. I have had experiences where I had been taken out of my body. I had been reduced to the size of what is essentially an atom or maybe even a photon, a mere particle of existence. And I had to actually find my way back into my own consciousness. I had to relearn my own name. I had to find my own body. I had to relearn that I even had a body. It's a crazy thing to try to grasp and try to understand. But within that time period, within that moment, which was maybe 10 minutes, I would say, maybe 10 minutes of time on the earth plane, it was like I lived an entire lifetime in there trying to piece myself back together, which for some people might sound kind of traumatic. It was a little bit. It was a little bit traumatic. It was a little bit traumatic. So anyway, you know, just leave. That's all you gotta do. Oh, that's it. That's all you gotta do. Just, pull out of your physical human body and, you'll perceive time as it truly is, a nonlinear, sentient, living force that we're constantly interacting with in an infinite manner through a series of infinite realities that are all equally real and viable. And talk about the greatest mind fuck talk about the greatest mind fuck possible for humans. Anyway, I'm just going on and on. Thank you, Cruz Perez. I hope that made sense. It may or may not. Take what you can and file the rest for future reference. Pat Windsor says, have you heard of Darius Wright? He teaches people to leave your body in a controlled out of body where you can consciously travel to other realms, not astral. He says this will give you your own answered. I think you meant ascension, or yeah, your own answers, right? Um, I have not heard of Darius Wright. I will admit that. However, I have heard of Henda Zaguani, who, as odd as it sounds, does the exact same thing as Mr. Right, or it sounds like they have very, very similar mission paths because Henda was actually on our channel, I think 2 or 3 years ago now. You guys can find her video if you scroll back through there. But I worked with her for a number of months. I would say for the majority of a year on learning to leave the physical human body. And for a time, I don't know if she's doing it full time now. I think she has other projects that she's working on, but that was one of her big mission paths for a while, was teaching people reliably to leave the human body. And my God, let me tell you, I mean, there is nothing like that. I mean, my God, it was, and she doesn't even do it while she's talking to you. It's like I would just lay down. I would literally lay down. We would talk over Zoom or over Messenger, and she would say, "Okay, we're gonna do, this process. Just lay down." And I would literally just go in, lay down in bed, and within a few minutes, it's like you will literally leave your body. I watched myself move through vast wormholes and portals throughout space and time. I watched myself show up at what we might call astral way stations or meeting places where other beings that were travelers would stop. I got caught in certain places where I shouldn't have been. I visited dome cities. I got to watch the creation of worlds, literally watching them build planets in these massive, massive sort of like world building, almost like asteroid fields at the edge of this galaxy where they were literally building planets. Um, it was mind blowing, mind blowing. It literally changed me. I think probably out of all the sort of out of body work that I was doing at that time. This was, I would say, 2021 or 2020. Out of all the work that I had done during that time, there was one event that really, really, really shook me, in the midst of all of those out of body travels, and that was one day after the sort of lesson or the journey that she took me on. As I came back into this body here and I opened my eyes in a different place. But I mean, like, these eyes, this body. I'm not talking about an astral plane. I'm not talking about a projection of, like, like, oh, it was, I just viewed it on the astral. No, no, it was like I opened my eyes one time and I was in a different room. It was like my apartment. Okay, you guys, it was like our house, but it was a different one. And there was a different table and there was like different stuff and it was like arranged differently. And it was like, it was literally an alternate version of the place that I was living in. And I remember opening my eyes and looking to my right, and I looked at the table that was next to me, and I could see what was on the table. Literally, it was a bottle of soy sauce. There was literally this bottle of soy sauce on the table, and I remember just looking around, going like, "What? Oh!" Like, this utter shock of like, this is not my house. This is not right. This is not right. Boom, bam, snap, and then I was right back into this body. It was like for that split second, I was, like, caught in, like, some sort of a threshold of another realm or a parallel version of me, and right as I opened my eyes, it was like I was still in between, like, somewhere in the multidimensional stack of, like, realities, and, as I was coming back into this one, I was like, I opened my eyes in the wrong one, and, oh lord. Man, it rocked me. It literally just, those times in your life, and everyone's had those. It doesn't even have to be, at the hands of some sort of a mystical, multidimensional experience. Every now and then, you might almost get hit by a car and you have the same effect where you just have to sit there and go, fuck, what? Those moments of just like, that's what it was. It was after that, and I'm not gonna say it was negative. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with it, you come back immediately into the here and now, but it was definitely one of those times in one's life where you realize that you have opened the door into something that is so much more real than you could have ever thought it could be. You know what I mean? One of those times in your life where all of a sudden you realize, "Oh, shit, this is really actually happening." That's what it was for me. It was just it was like it was that type of a thing, and I'm gonna be real, it's not like I could just, snap, go out of my body and show up on an alternate reality, right now and just in a different room like this, only it'll be a different computer. It's not like I can do that now. I'm not trying to say that it's, like you just pick up this magical ability and you just snap into another reality. But what I am trying to tell you is that it can and literally really does happen. And careful what you wish for, because it gets really weird out there. It gets really weird out there. What's up, White Swan? How's it going? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, White Swan. You certainly can. In fact, you are reminding me. For those of you guys out there, we are probably going to do one more. We're probably one live class this year. We have been spending a lot of time on private training programs and the group training things, but it has been requested multiple times. In fact, right now there have been 2 requested classes that it shows up. And so what do I mean when I say requested? I mean, like, I would say every month or so. Every month or so, I'll get an email from one person or another person saying, "Hey, when are you going to do this class again? When are you going to do that class again?" And so far this year, the ones that people have asked for have been the chakra class and the multidimensional tarot class. Those are two that people keep coming back to. And so, Miss White Swan just informed us, but okay, we're going to make this really, really quick. We're going to make this really quick. You know exactly, some of you guys know exactly what I'm going to do. It's unfortunate that we have to do this, but a lot of you guys do know. Boom. They are literally out there right now. And I say this specifically because some people, and you know who you are. I think you're here. I think you're here in the chat in this moment. But some people have been asking, when are you going to do the multidimensional tarot class again? Well, that's a very good question. I would like to do another class maybe toward the final quarter of 2024. But in the meantime, you can find it on Vimeo. And in fact, sometimes I think it's almost better to get the recorded version of it because you can pause it, you can play it back, you can look at just a lot more closely what it is that we're talking about. You can even speed it up or you can slow it down. But it's a lot of material, you guys, a lot of material, 19 hours and 50 minutes over, I think it was 5 sessions, right? Where for those of you guys that really do want to begin to build a relationship with multidimensional tarot and start pulling cards for yourself, this will definitely give you an entryway into learning to do such a thing. I mean, it truly can. And the reality is, it doesn't matter where you get it, whether it's from this class or whether it's, just from, analyzing the bowels of YouTube. If you create a relationship if you create a relationship with your divination tool, you are going to go to a completely different level in terms of what you're able to discern from spirit. In fact, that's why the second gateway is divination. For those that really truly want to open up your psychic skills, divination is where you learn the language. And so also, get ready, here comes the other one. Boom, there it is. This is the other one that people keep asking for, which to me is sort of the basis. It's sort of like the basic entry point for learning how to work with non-physical or energetic anatomy in the body. When we talk about the capsule phrases that I use within our sessions earlier, we were talking about using Ava Me as a method through which you can begin to vibrate and essentially dilate, which is what we do when we are using these phrases. We're dilating energy centers. And this right here is probably, in my opinion, one of the easiest ways in which you could get started on that. You can learn how to use the capsule phrases. You can go through an energy clearing in each and every session that we go through within this class. It's not just about divulging information. We also do a little bit of a meditation and an energy body clearing. And so I'm not decided on which one of these we're going to do as a live class yet. I really, really don't know. I think right now, kind of our big priority is just kind of getting the book out. We have an event coming up in July, and then just seeing kind of what happens after that. We're also wrapping up our 90-day transformation process in I would like to say late July. And so we definitely have some changes and stuff on the horizon. Just hasn't been fully, we're not fully aware of what that'll be. So you guys can help me by telling me. You guys can say it. Let me know in a comment. If you're watching this video after the fact, let me know in the comments. What is it that you want to begin doing within the work that we do? Over the past, since I'd say 2019, we've been doing a lot of education around how to work with chakras, how to work with meridians, how to read tarot. We've done psychic self-defense. We've even done remote viewing, which is wild because, if you haven't noticed, literally everybody in your multidimensional, family network is now a remote viewer. So, you know, everybody's a remote viewer and everybody's a galactic shaman. Just so you know, all you got to do is one meditation and boom. But anyway, so you guys, please let me know which one are you looking forward to. I think we're going to do one live class before the end of the year. And we're also going to be recruiting for the next iteration, the next wave. Maybe we'll call it the next team of multidimensional travelers for our transformation program, which I have to admit, we haven't really been talking about it that much because we're knee deep in it. But something very, very different has taken place within the development group this time around. Something very, very different. It's like this other part of me cringes when I say certain words, but it is kind of like a whole new era in terms of the type of group work that we're doing. And so I'm looking forward to, not only, continuing the one that we're in right now, but also doing another one in the coming months. Because if there's one thing that we've learned about this, and we're just past the halfway point of our 90-day journey, if there's one thing we've learned about it this time around, is that people really, really want to be there. People want to be there. People want to expand. People want to grow. Yes, people want to challenge themselves. People want to be part of something where there's like this system and this thing that we're doing and these processes that we're doing together. And you know what I mean? And we're noticing, how certain changes take place or emotions shift throughout the week, and then you'll come back and talk about it and, do some qigong or do meditation or do breath work, and I think one of the things that we have noticed is that people want to engage in such practices right now. And I think when I look at the heart of it all, I think it's one of the best things we can do. I think we activate ourselves by activating each other. The more real and authentic, the more direct, the more accountable, the more present we can be alongside other people in an era in which, every piece of your technology in your mortal realm is designed to remove you from other people, to remove you from the internal realm inside your body. And I think a lot of you guys have noticed that our world is designed as such right now to remove you from yourself. One of the things we find is that those within the spiritual communities, those that are developing their intuition or stepping into a new stage of mission and purpose, it seems that people thrive. It seems that people thrive upon those moments of connection. And so, anyway, I'm just going on and on, but it stands to reason we shall be doing it again in the coming months. We'll definitely be doing it again. What's up, Tasha Huck? How's it going? Good to see you. Yep. She says I had to go back to sleep several times once because I just kept, oh, you had this happen too. You woke up in the wrong place. So, okay. So this happens. This happens to other people. Careful what you wish for, guys. Every now and then you leave your body and you might come back into the wrong body. I'm serious. I'm glad that someone else in here has had a similar experience because let me tell you, my God, that one will rock you, dude. When you're like, wait, this is my room, but it's not my room. And granted, it was maybe like, like 1, 2, half a second. You know what I mean? It's like this split second occurrence where you're like, boom, and then snap. Luckily, by the grace of God or some other force in this world, we got brought back to the right place because, my Lord, you never know. You never know what can happen out there. Anyway, thanks, you guys. Thanks for hanging out here. Let me know if you have any other questions before I do a Ivan Teller style, before we do an Ivan Teller style closure of this bizarre live stream. Thanks, White Swan. She says, awesome. I love it. Bring on a new era. It is. It's kind of a new era, right? I think it is. It's kind of a new era. Thanks, you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm just going to scan through, see if there's any notable questions or comments here. Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it. Fifth Element says, I want to take the chakra class. I took oh, thank you. Thanks for taking that, Fifth Element. I appreciate you. That means a lot. Thank you for being a part of that. Yep, Crystal was there for remote viewing. What's up, Crystal? Good to see you. Definitely. Feng Shui Susan says, Pat, I do not believe that person's motives are honorable. Matthew and Honora. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I try to be. I don't know. I don't know if I can be anything other than that now. I think people would notice too quick People would notice too quick if all of a sudden I change and I was like, "For only 99.99, you can join my new school for star seeds in which you get a pre-recorded message from Lord Metatron in the Ashtar command every 3 days." And then you receive, you know what I mean? Maybe then, maybe if I started pushing that, then maybe you could question the authenticity, but I don't know. There would probably be a number of other bizarre signs. We can only imagine what they are. Somebody out there could tell for that split second. I was like, what what would actually take place? There would be signs. There would be signs. Anyway, thanks you guys. We're gonna roll out of here in a little bit. I can feel it. The Ivan Teller style closure is coming up. What's up, Paisley, Laura Shoe Guy? Yep, Andre Hodge is talking about Galactic Special Forces are doing big work on the inner something or other. I'll bet you mean the inner Earth. You know what? I'm going to be real. I hope they are. I hope Galactic Special Forces are doing big work. I also hope there's Galactic Special Forces. I think I've passed the point where will say because it sounds too much like a sci-fi movie that it's not real. I think I'm at the stage now where I'm willing to say, well, I certainly hope to hell they are. I pray to God that's real. You know, the other day, what was the other one we heard the other day? What was it? Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab got rounded up by some kind of tribunal court or something like that, or was it the White Hats or something, or insert savior complex terminology. Somehow got a hold of Klaus Schwab, so now he's gone, right? Who knows? I don't think that's true, but um, I really hope that they are. I hope that they're doing big work on the inner Earth plane. I'm willing to accept the work that they're doing. You know what I mean? You never know, you guys. Far be it for me to say. What's up, Miranda Anderson? You arrived just in time. She says, I had something pull me out of my body by my feet. And I got up and the bedroom was a bit different. I ran back and played back in my body and fell asleep. I believe it. Let me tell you, I believe it. That will definitely happen. And luckily you were able to get back, into yourself and it didn't get any worse than that. But I've worked with people that have had very, very similar experiences. I don't think that I've ever been like forcefully pulled out or ejected from my body in that way. I've had, beings put their hands inside my astral body, like very, very, very deliberately, where they like try to, reach inside and grab something or put something in. Maybe we could even say that has definitely happened to me. I have definitely had an experience of something trying to get in. That was one that happened years ago, back in 2015, when I didn't really talk about this specifically in the book, but the very first few weeks of this heavy kind of crazy crown chakra activation that I went through, I noticed, well, now I know in hindsight that my energy body had been ripped open to such a level that, it sounds crazy, but you can fall out of your body. It sounds wild. It sounds dumb. It's like, what? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You mean you just started involuntarily leaving your body? Yes, yes, yes. It'll happen. And so anyway, to go back to your comment, there was more than I would say 3, 4, maybe a handful of times where I really wild things would happen to me first thing in the morning, and right as I was waking up, it was like I could feel and hear like somebody breathing and like trying to like struggle to push themselves inside my body. I knew it was a male. I knew it was like an older person. I could hear their voice. I could hear these grunts and these sounds of it like trying to struggle to try to push itself into my body, which sounds crazy, right? You're like, what? Wait, how? It's the only way I can describe it. I mean, literally, that's what it was. It was like right as I was coming back in, somebody tried to kind of cram themselves in the doorway right as I was coming into it. You know what I mean? Then imagine it's like two bodies meet in the middle of a doorway and you push through and you get in there before they do, type of a situation. That's very, very much what it was like. And so, trust me, I believe you when you say that you got ripped out of your body. It definitely happens. And so it gets really weird, you guys. It gets really weird as my nose starts running violently on our live stream. We got the psychic duck in the house. What's up? Quickety quack, motherfucker. I want to get the psychic duck to say that. Sometime when the psychic duck shows up on Rob's show, I want the psychic duck to say that. They'll probably be offended. But anyway, what's up, psychic duck? Thanks for rolling through. It's good to see you. Thanks, Lori Shoe Guy. Oh, yes, it is us working together with Earth and the interdimensional. Our higher selves, not only those fake alien galactics we are working, like you're talking about. It's a new era of service. Well, I could definitely agree that it's a new era of service, I think, for a lot of us. I definitely agree that it is. I think if you're one of the people that's watching this live stream, you've probably noticed over the past few months or maybe the past years or just in the past, recent time that has just gone by that real elements of your mission, of your assignment, pieces of your identity, of how you've defined yourself over the past few years are changing as well. You're adopting new behavior sets, new traits, new elements of you are coming online. And I think sometimes some of the best things we can do is embrace it and allow it to happen. And anyway, that's probably not what you were referring to with your comment, but she says it has happened to me. I was over in Iraq in another person's body. I believe it. I bet you were, man. Absolutely. I absolutely believe it. I don't see any reason why you weren't. Because it will definitely happen. It's one of those things where it's like careful what you wish for, which there was a time prior to this crazy awakening journey where I really spent a large amount of time conditioning myself to the extent where I was ready to leave the body. And a lot of people talk about how you'll come to these stages of vibration or these sort of kind of frequencies that will rise up within the body as you learn to relax and kind of open up pathways and, kind of loosen up the body so your spirit can kind of slide out. I went on a very dedicated journey to try to initiate that in the beginning prior to the awakening stage, and it honestly didn't work for me. I got very, very, very close, really close. I think a couple times I became aware of that process as I was coming back into the body. It was like I would be enabled to leave, but I was unconscious of it until right as I would kind of come back into my body again. And, I think that's just where I was at the time. That was just kind of the stage I was at and what I was ready for. I was on a lot of medications during that stage of my journey, very, very polluted, very inflamed. And so, I think it's likely that I just had a lot of density that really didn't allow it to take place. And then when this awakening journey for me occurred in 2015, I mean, it was like I could not control that. Stuff is just falling out of your pockets all the time, and it's very much what it was like. And nowadays it's integrated, I think, in an appropriate way. I think currently, I think there's probably a lot of like density within my body, like toxins and kind of diet related stuff that will make it a little bit more difficult for me to really effectively and repeatedly leave the body in the manner that I did in years past. But it is a thing that still happens. It definitely still happens. Although we also learn that within the process of learning to travel or view out of body, there's many different versions of that. And there's a stage of true out of body travel where your full consciousness is completely outside of your physical body and you have full control over your movement and your actions, and that's what some people would call like the full true out of body state. And then there's a bunch of other what we might call varying states where it's almost as if a person's consciousness can be partially released, or you can imagine it's almost like you're still there in the body, but it's like you can kind of sit up and sort of it gives you a different viewpoint, and you can interact with energies differently. And it's not that you would necessarily have the complete freedom of travel and movement, but you will have the ability to interact with and perceive energies outside of the body in a little bit of a different way than you would otherwise. Um, and then there's many other different versions of it. But anyway, I could go on and on and on about it. Then, of course, there's the mind layer, which I think is one we always have to talk about, especially for people that are just starting to do psychic work, or you're really starting to work on your third eye. You're coming to the stages in which you know that you have an ability, and you're trying to push through those layers of energy within your mind's eye that make you feel like you're making it up, or it makes you feel like, you're doing it totally wrong, or you know what I mean, or that can't be real. That is a layer of the internal mind's eye. Not really a layer of what we would call the third eye per se, but there's these sort of like consciousness layers that exist within your auric field, and some of them are made up of data, some of them are made up of experiences, some of them are made up of past things, some of them are made up of like emotions and other stuff. And when you start to really use the third eye and start to use, I guess what we would call like start to use the pineal gland as the gateway to travel into other realms, um, you'll just notice that it can be it can be a difficult thing to initiate. And someone's gonna laugh. I totally just lost my train of thought right at that moment when I saw a comment there. Every now and then, you guys will see me do that. I'll be right on this stream of talking about something, and then I will get pulled out of it. I'll get to your comment in a second there, but um anyway, wow, that was a fun one. We got all the way to that little roadblock, and then boom. Anyway, thanks you guys. Um, Remind me if there was another add-on to that question or that rant that I was on there. But anyway, I saw this comment on the side of the screen. Every now and then when a big one comes in, I'll take a look at it out of the corner of my eye, and it pulled me out of the moment. And it's Lois. She says, I was in a dream episode with my angel saving me falling off a building. I turned to take a look at him, and he indicated it was not allowed by putting his hand on my face, pushing me awake. I believe it. That will definitely happen. They'll push you back into the physical mortal world. You know what I mean? They'll shove you back into the here and now. I had a similar thing like that happen. Some of you guys have heard me tell this story many times, but during the out of body travel stage where I was really pushing it, really going for it, I ended up, in this place where there was a giant. There was a giant inside this. It sounds dumb, right? Some of you guys have heard this one. There was a giant sitting inside a bank down the street from my house. Sounds silly, right? Sounds crazy. In an out of body state, I walked into that bank, and the giant kicked me out of there. And he literally said, "You're not supposed to be here." Boom. And just shoved me all the way back into my body, like slammed me back into the here and now. It was just like he's just shut the door in my face. And we came right back. And so I believe it, man. I believe it. Luckily you got spared from a disaster in the midst of that experience. And so anyway, I just remembered what I was talking about earlier, you guys, the mind layer. In fact, maybe that was an example of me getting caught in the mind layer. But the reason why I was commenting on that is because when you're just starting out doing psychic work, you really do have to jump through or learn to wade through the layer of your mind that's going to train you to believe that you're making things up. In fact, you will inevitably learn that one of the ways in which you will continue to open your third eye and converse with and connect with spirit will be through learning to harness your imagination in a very new way. And it can be a really bizarre and hard to understand element of the path of a psychic awakening, because for a lot of people it's the stage where unless you're really comfortable and have a lot of self-trust, you can greatly hold yourself back because there's going to be this time or these moments in which you're attempting to connect with people's energy, or you're trying to discern or perceive something non-physically, and you're going to slide into this vision or this image or this scenario or this scene inside your head, and you're going to know within your unconsciousness. You're going to know, you're going to be like, I know that I'm probably making this up. I realize my consciousness is creating this thing, this construct, this piece of information, this experience. And so, therefore, there's no way that it could be true. There's no way that it could be authentic. My mind is making this up. I can feel myself doing it. You'll think that you are, right? Um, and what's crazy is you kind of have to. You have to learn to interact with what we call the creationary elements of your childhood imagination within within that universe inside you. You have to learn to redefine it. You have to learn to connect with it in very new ways. You have to learn to begin to embrace the bizarre natural flow of the childhood imagination inside you. And because what'll happen is, at the start of that journey, you're going to receive a lot of nonsensical data. You're going to receive a lot of things that are basically just images. And, think of it like a desk in your house, and there's papers all over it. And, underneath all those papers is the data you're looking for, right? But on top, on the upper layers of that desk, there's just all these papers and ads and pieces of mail. And as you work your way through to the bottom where the real data is, it's like you're going to pick up each one of those pieces of paper, and you'll probably look at some of them. Some of them you'll just toss out instantly because you'll know it's just junk. But others, you'll get pulled into it. Everyone's had that experience when you're cleaning out a room in your house and you get pulled into the nostalgia of old items. They take you down a little bit of a memory road. We have a similar construct within the third eye realm, within the mind's eye, or the mental body. And before you can start perceiving real truth and start interacting with spirit on a more dedicated manner that brings truth, it's like you have to sift through all those papers, all this junk that's on the top of your desk. And so that's why I say sometimes you got to fake it until you make it. Sometimes you have to let your imagination run wild. It's like a force of energy that exists within your mental body that can and will be drained out, but you have to learn how to interact with it. And so later on, it'll end up becoming one of your greatest strengths, and your most amazing skills will be your ability to visually perceive energies that exist inside another person. But it will come at the cost of you learning how to redefine the bizarre intricacy of your imagination. And so, how might one do that? I would say when you begin to connect with people, you can even do it in a moment like this. I think that's why YouTube is such an invaluable resource, because it allows you to just, watch people on camera and literally just stare at them and look at their energy and perceive everything about, their micro expressions and the movement of their eyes and the manner in which they breathe. It gives us a really good living study of empathically relayed information and kind of psychic data that comes from a number of places in a human's body. And so, what I would say is just choose people that you enjoy and sort of listen to their voices, look at their energy, and begin to allow your mind to wander within the fabric and the essence of the energy contained in their words. Like, just feel it. In some parts of that, you'll be closing your eyes. In other parts of it, you'll be, watching a person very intently. And it's not so much about what you observe through the physical senses. It's about what happens when you attempt to understand information or data based upon the non-physical wavelengths. And so it's like you're looking for data or feelings or visions, or we could even say, excuse me, we could even say you will start to receive memories or thought forms that are not your own, meaning things that are not of you, that you were not thinking of, that are not part of your typical kind of, batch of predetermined thought forms that go through your own mind's eye. Everyone has their own special version of this. But one of the things you'll learn when you start connecting with other people is that one of the ways you'll know that you're connecting with other people is as you kind of enter their energy field, your thoughts will change, your emotions will change, your desires will change, your senses will change. And the ways in which you're going to know whether it's you or them will be based upon your knowledge of self. So I guess to answer your question, because I noticed somebody put that in the chat, how do we get there? I would say on by doing two things. Number one, like I just said, allowing yourself to just drift with and take in and absorb the data, the voice, the information that comes from people that you're studying in an attempt to get better at connecting with intuitive non-physical data. Just allow yourself to receive that and go inward, go into your body, go into your mind's eye, and just don't edit it. Let it go wherever it goes. And I'm gonna be real, for some people, that will get weird. It's gonna get weird. You're gonna go weird places where you're like, "Whoa, whoa," I guess, and I think that at the starts of that, or at the beginning of that journey, you kinda have to let things drain themselves out. So you're gonna be going some weird places with people in your mind's eye. Um, some of you guys will get idea what I'm talking about. Not that you'll stay there, but as you work through that mind layer, you will also understand that there's a myriad of emotions and unresolved things and just ideas and feelings and you have to be able to wade through that layer, which is why I think for some people, unless they really get to know themselves, which is part two, when I say it's twofold, the other thing you're going to do is you really have to you have to get to know yourself on a much different level. I guess if you want to approach it from, more like spiritualist, terminology perspective, you would call it knowledge of self. You must gain knowledge of self. Who am I truly? What do I truly believe in? What do I truly love? What do I truly hate? What do I truly feel about this? Look at the reality, the true essence of who and what you are. I believe that that will give you that starting point between, where I end and you begin, which I think for a lot of people that begin to do real psychic work, that's where people get stuck. It's like, how do I know when it's just me firing off brain images from, my old trauma in my mind's eye and you and your energy and your thought forms and your desires? How do I know when one is one and one is the other? That's the trick for a lot of people. And there's not that many people that start doing this work that will actually take the time to begin to discern such things. But those that do, usually through knowledge of self, deprogramming, detox, methods are endless. You will come to a completely different layer of what you're able to understand about people and yourself and all kinds of wild things. And I could go on and on and on about them, but I think that 2024 for a lot of us, especially those of you that end up finding this broadcast, 2024 is going to be a year of some of the most momentous and intense activations you've had. And by activations, I mean you coming into new stages of awareness of non physical or spiritual or intuitive data that exists within the world. I think when we look back on our human journeys, many of us are going to look back upon this year, maybe 2023, maybe other ones as well. There's always a series of, notable years that we will look back on. I think 2024 is going to be one of those years that we're going to look back on and go, that was the stage in which I began to blank. We don't know what it is. It's going to be different for each of us, but so notice where you are right now. Notice what stage you're at this year, right now in the summer of 2024. What are you dealing with? What are you challenged by? What victories have you had this year? What wounds are you healing right now? What desires have gone unmet? What worries do you have? What sort of things are hanging over your head, we could even say. I think this year is going to teach us a lot. In the meantime, I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us this long. A number of you guys have stayed for the whole time. I love you. I know there's always a few that stay this whole time, but um, As a lot of you guys already know, coming up this Saturday, June 22nd, my book is coming out. This is it right here. This is the proof version of it. That's why it says not for resale, but it's coming out June 22nd, this Saturday. What if you're not crazy? What if you're psychic? And so I look forward to hearing that a few of you guys in the chat are going to be picking it up. Once again, if you ever wanted to be of service to me on this journey, if you've enjoyed any of these live streams, any of the energy we've created over the past 7 years, I pray that you'll consider picking up this book and honestly helping us reach an entirely new population of people. When I look at the goal behind this, when I look at like, why did I do this? Why did I spend all these hours and months trying to write down all this painful stuff? I believe is because there is a mission. There is a true calling. And I think for a lot of us out there, we've been living our entire life with incredible abilities, incredible skills. There's so many psychics and healers and mystics walking around this world, and they don't even know it because there's no system to identify them. We get treated like we're too weird, too impossible, too bizarre, too difficult our whole life. And I think for a lot of us, it's because there was another force of energy trying to make itself known to each one of us. And so, anyway, I look forward to hearing that a number of you guys have picked it up. We'll probably be talking about it next week, and you'll probably get tired of me talking about it. So I will apologize in advance. But boom, here it is coming up June 22nd. In the meantime, you guys, I think we're going to roll out of here. So maybe YouTube will actually recommend. Maybe YouTube will recommend our video to more people this time because we're keeping it pretty close to the 2 hour mark. But I love you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Please join us this Saturday also on Typical Skeptic podcast over at 8 p.m. Eastern. And for those of you guys that want to get a reading, come find us over in the Patreon universe. Head over to patreon.com/Blue Flame Collective. And we're going to be meeting up this Saturday, the 22nd at 4 p.m. Eastern. Everybody that shows up gets a reading. So we are excited to see who turns up. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, you guys. I love you all. And we shall see you very, very soon. Get ready. Here comes my Ivan Teller style ending.